half the reason you're hungry may not have anything to do with hunger at all. But let's say you're hungry all the time. I have several different reasons. The first one is, simply put, you are not eating enough, because most people take the whole calorie deficit concept and run it way too far, because there's a difference between being in a small calorie deficit, and even if you have a little bit of hunger, that's normal, versus if you are hungry every second of the day, always hungry 24/7, cannot be satiated, you don't have enough real meals. You're living off of bars, shakes, and coffee. My goal with this is to just make you go, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Oh shit, I'm doing that. And then you can take one or two of these things and implement the change, so that way you're not hungry all the time. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. If you're new around the show, welcome here. I appreciate it. My name is Jared Hamilton and I'm your host. Now in today's episode, we are talking about why you are always hungry. If you've ever said to yourself, why am I always hungry? Or if you've thrown that into a search bar on like Spotify or YouTube, who knows, maybe that's how you found this episode. This is going to be really eye-opening for you, because when it comes to hunger, it's such a nuanced thing. It's super interesting. So in this episode, we're breaking it down to a couple different parts, because hunger is very different. Because the second part of this we're going to talk about, and this is the majority, is we're going to talk about why you are physically hungry all the time. Okay, we're going to get to that. But I think I also need to mention, half the reason you're hungry may not have anything to do with hunger at all. It comes down to how you label things in your own vernacular and in your day-to-day, because words carry meaning. Because hunger is such an interesting thing, because you have to be careful. If anytime you desire food, we call that hunger, even when you're not actually hungry, that's going to make things super hard. What I mean by that is, let's say you're not actually hungry, like you're actually quite satiated and full, but if food is how you handle stress and you just always find yourself munching and eating, but you call that hunger, that's going to cloud things. Or like, let's say, I have a whole bunch of examples on my notes. Let's say you're just craving something sweet. Like you just had dinner and something sweet sounds nice, but you may call that, oh, I'm still hungry. Well, you're not actually hungry. You just want like some ice cream and you just want something sweet, but you're not physically hungry. It's going to cloud things. Let's say you're tired, and all of a sudden when you're tired, you find your way into the pantry, whether you're hungry or not. It's just the pattern that happens. So that may be also what's going on. Let's say you haven't eaten all day. You're hungry. Cookies on the counter that you can't quit thinking about. Now you're hungry as well. Well, let's say you have so many food rules that you just think about food and what you can and can't eat all day. So you're thinking about food all day. So now you associate that with you being hungry all day, but that may not be the actual case. So we have to decipher, is what you're going through actually hunger, or is it more of your relationship with food and more of the associations in the words that you're using? And this is not just semantics. The reason this is important is because the words we use have meanings attached to them and have behaviors that come on the other side. So this is why we have to be very, very particular around the words that we use. The example I give to clients a lot with this is, like, let's say the word love. Like, for example, I love my wife, but I also love lasagna. But the love I have for my wife is very different than the love that I have for lasagna, but we use the same word, love. So imagine if I didn't know how to decipher that and understand that, and you understand what I'm meaning, but imagine if I didn't. And this is where it could be kind of different, because I'm using the same word, but two entirely different meanings. So in the same way, it's kind of the same thing here. Whereas if every time you are wanting food, you call it hungry, it's going to make it really hard to understand your hunger signals and to listen to your body, and why you may say, I'm always hungry, when you actually may not be. But I don't want to just like gaslight you or like leave it here and be like, oh, you're not actually hungry, because let's actually talk about when you are hungry. But let's say you're hungry all the time and you're just like, why am I always hungry? Let's dive into that. So I have several different reasons on here why this may be the case, where you're always viscerally hungry. So a lot of them stem off of the first one. So the first one is the most important, but then we'll get into all these other ones. I have like 12 written out, whether we get to them all, but they all, in a lot of cases, stem off the first one. So let's talk about it. The first one is, simply put, you are not eating enough. If you are always hungry all the time, the very first line of defense, I'm going, are you eating enough? Because chances are, if you are not eating enough, there are several reasons for this. You may be saying, well, Jared, I'm dieting, I'm trying to lose weight. So, I'm in a deficit. That's how this goes. There's a difference though, because most people take the whole calorie deficit concept and run it way too far. because there's a difference between being in a small calorie deficit, and even if you have a little bit of hunger, that's normal, versus if you are hungry every second of the day, always hungry, 24/7, cannot be satiated. Well, this is where we have to see, well, where are your actual numbers at? Because most people are severely under eating because of several reasons. It could be, number one, it could be trendy dieting. You could be following just every surface level plan out there. And so of course you are going to end up eating way underneath your maintenance and being hungry. It could be you're scared to come out of a deficit. If you are the kind of person that's been on a perpetual diet 24/7, 365, where you just diet all year round, where you're maybe a little bit concerned or scared to not be dieting, that can be half this problem too. Because of course your hunger is going to go through the roof if you are always trying to diet and you're scared to not diet. This is why some of the first things that we do with clients is not diet yet. In my program, Dieting from the Inside Out, I always say we have to diet from the inside out first before we diet for real and get these numbers to even a sustainable point. When someone comes into the program, they're like, Jared, I eat 1,200 calories and I can't lose weight. We're not ready to lose weight. We actually have them increase their calories, find their max amount of calories they can eat without anything bad happening, without gaining weight or gaining body fat or anything like that. Then once we're at a stable point, then we can go down into a deficit in stage 2. This is why most people are not ready. This is why, though, if you are always hungry, we have to look at this. What's your dieting history? Have you been on a diet every month for the last couple years? Would you agree you've done that? Are you following trendy dieting? Are you, let's say you might be eating extra low just to make sure. Like, let's say MyFitnessPal said eat 1,500 calories, but you're like, well, I want to be sure, so you're eating 1,200. Did you plateau and kept doing what we call a race to the bottom, where you were doing well, eating less, but then you quit losing, so you dropped your calories more? There are so many reasons like this that you just simply may not be eating enough. But we don't want to take the whole calorie deficit concept and run it too far, and you're actually severely under eating, because this does a few things, and this is not the point of this episode, but this will actually over time stall weight loss progress, because your body has what's called an adaptation response, where if you've been in a calorie deficit for super long or too long, your body will actually downregulate. Your metabolism will burn less calories and everything will slow down because you've been in a deficit for too long. But then also hunger can get really high and through the roof and all this stuff. So the very first thing is, if you're hungry all the time, I would be curious where your daily numbers are at, because chances are they are not where they should be, or they should be higher, or you maybe have been in a deficit for too long. Okay. Number 2, why you may be hungry all the time is, I've just mentioned it, but I think we should lean into it. You may be dieting all year round and never come out. If you are spending way too much time in a calorie deficit, that makes so much sense why you're hungry all the time, because you've been calorically restricted for too long. Like if you're going on, like, let's say like our average client, like everyone's different, but on average, we always suggest to be in a calorie deficit for like 12 weeks max and come out. 12 weeks max, come out, 12 weeks and come out. But now this obviously varies person to person, because sometimes we have clients that will come out every weekend and be maintenance. So that throws different things into the mix. But as a whole, if I'm going to give general guidelines, every three-ish months, go in, come out. So if you've been in a deficit and been dieting for like 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks, 6 months, I mean, I would suggest coming out, because that's one of the reasons you're probably always hungry, is because you've been calorically restricted for too long. Next, number 3, you may be hungry all the time because you're following diets that have their own name. I'm telling you, in 15 years of coaching people, real people, thousands of clients, we have never once given someone like a keto diet or Weight Watchers or Atkins or any of these trendy diets, because they're not sustainable or practical for the vast majority of people. Yes, there might be some people out there they are, but I haven't met them in 15 years. So a big piece of this, though, is if you've been following plans that are just unsustainable, they're doing everything that I've mentioned so far. That's the problem. You're spending too much time in them. They're not having you eat enough calories. You may be getting rid of entire categories of food, like in keto, they get rid of carbs or whatever. So that may be half of this problem, where you're just following a diet that's not sustainable. So it makes sense why you are constantly hungry. Number 4, this one isn't as deep, but it's a pretty big deal. You may just not be eating enough protein. When I zoom out and look at everyone I've worked with over the last, like the landscape of the last like decade and a half, the people that I see that have struggled with their hunger consistently don't have enough protein. Yeah, there may be an outlier or two, but it's one of those things where in most cases, if someone's like, I struggle with my hunger, I'm always hungry, they usually don't have enough protein. If you're newer to this, protein is one of the most satiating macros of all the three that you can have, if you keep your protein intakes like high, like in the appropriate suggested ranges, it's going to be harder for you to have hunger issues. That's why when it comes to the suggested guideline, if you're around, depending on your body composition, 0.5 gram to 1 gram per pound of body weight, you're usually in a good spot. If you have a lot of weight to lose, you may err on the side of 0.5 gram. If you are pretty lean and don't have as much to lose, you may lean on the side of 1 gram per pound of body weight. Now, at the end of the day, though, if you aren't eating very, very much protein, like let's say you're getting, 80 grams a day, that doesn't mean just to jump to like 160 and double it overnight. With so much of this stuff, you want to build it back slowly. So when I have a client who's struggling with their protein intake, and I'll go from 80 to like 100, and then let's chill out there for a while and be consistent with that, then go up from there. But if you're noticing you're going through this journey and you're really struggling with hunger, look at your protein intake. That's one of the biggest pieces with this. Next, number 5, if you are struggling with your hunger, I would be curious if you're skipping meals. I'm telling you, I work almost exclusively with people who have struggled with their weight most of their life and gone through many trendy diets. And this is one of the big ones, is for whatever reason, if you notice you are hungry all the time, I would look at it and ask what your meal schedule looks like. Because there's no magic meal timing, like 6 meals a day, 3, like none of that. That's an individual thing. But if you are currently hungry all the time, I would be curious if you're skipping meals. Most of the people that we work with are very busy. They have kids, they have big careers, they travel a lot. So it's easy to like skip past breakfast with just coffee on the way out the door, or be so busy that you just grab a granola bar or a protein bar or miss lunch entirely, or just have a salad for dinner or a quick drive-through. Well, the problem is that's going to result in you being really infrequent with your meals and going to make your hunger be really high. So like, even if by the end of the day, your numbers are still in a good place, but if you're skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, skipping even maybe a couple meals, then it's going to result in your hunger being much higher. So if that's you, that may be one of the reasons. For context also, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. My goal with this is to just make you go, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Oh shit, I'm doing that. Whereas I don't want you to go and try to change all the things that you're doing. I want you to listen to this and go, okay, I'm hungry all the time. Maybe one of these goes, oh, that's me. And then you can take 1 or 2 of these things and implement the change. So that way you're not hungry all the time. That's my hope with this. Number 6, why you may be hungry all the time. This one is a little bit more unconventional, but I see it happen all the time, is that you avoid anything high calorie. What I mean by that is, especially if you came up during like the 70s, 80s, 90s of weight loss, it's really normal for you to be scared of anything over 300 calories. Where if I sat down and said, cool, here's a 550 calorie meal, you may go, that's a lot of calories. That's like a third of my day, or that's whatever, where that's kind of the problem. Because like, let's say even if your calories are 2,000 a day, that's how many you're aiming for, and you eat 4 times a day. That's literally, if we made it all even, like even in a snack, like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack, we made them all 500 calories a piece. Like that would end up perfectly by the end of the day, but part of you may be going, oh, that's so many calories per meal. But that's the problem, because instead of having actual satiating whole meals, you may be stuck in this battle of only eating things that are like 300 calories. So you live off of protein bars, granola bars, protein shakes, small itty bitty meal snacks. You graze throughout the day. So you never actually get satiated. So it's almost like food wise, you're just teasing yourself all day. And then whenever you're eating these foods, those 300 calories add up that quick, because it's like a granola bar or a protein bar where you're never actually satiated or feel good off of these foods. So then you're thinking about what you actually wanted all day. So we have to be careful not to fall into that trap of, oh, anything over 300, 400 calories is a lot, because a lot is contextual. Even like money, if I say, is $10,000 a lot? You may go, yes. I go, well, for a house? You're like, oh, okay, that's cheap. But if I say, cool, how about $300 for my mouse, like my Apple mouse? Well, that'd be me being a scam artist. So it's all contextual. So this is why we have to be careful with labeling, oh, that's a lot of calories. It's a little amount of calories. It's a lot of food. That's a little amount of food. But if you notice your hunger is always high, we should look of like, how many actual real big meals are you having? Or are you just living off of everything 300 calories and less in one sitting? So number 7, why you may be hungry all the time is, this is a mindset thing. Your mindset may be, how little can I eat to lose? I would get this question all the time. Like, Jared, what's the least amount of calories I can eat to lose weight? But that's like the worst mindset behind that question ever. That would be like, if I had to compare this to something different, if I said, how poorly can I treat my wife but her to not divorce me? Or How little can I clean the house to contribute, or whatever the case is. I'm not trying to get into a moral side of this, but I'm saying is the mindset in and of itself is failing you. Because instead of asking, how much can I get away with eating while still losing? The question is, how little should I be eating? How little and how deprived can I be? But that's not good. Like, imagine if you said, hey, how uninvolved can I be in my kid's life and still have them turn out to be okay? The intention behind that question is the problem. So that's why when it comes to the food side, you should be asking, how much can I get away with? One of the first things that we do with clients in my program when they join, because we don't do fat loss until stage 2. Stage 1, dieting from the inside out, we're fixing all the baggage, all the issues around food, all the food noise, all the stress and emotional eating, all the overeating, all of that stuff. Because then now we are successful in stage 2. But inside stage 1, one of the first things that we do is we find what I call the upper limit, because most people come in under eating because they've been trying to lose weight their whole life. So they're scared to eat more. So this is why we actually find out how many calories can this individual eat without anything bad happening. That's one of the first things that we do, because then in stage 2, now we can go, cool, be in a simple, small deficit without sacrificing anything, and you feel really good. But most people in stage 1 are shocked at how high they can get their calories. We get all the time people coming in, they go, Jared, I've been literally trying to diet on 1,200 calories for the last 10 years. In this whole time, I could have been eating 2,000 calories. Happens all the time because we actually test to find out how high can we get this person's calories. Also, by the way, just listening to this, if you're in that position where you're like, I'm tired of trying this on my own, and all the stuff you're talking about with your program, it sounds pretty good. If you're in that position and you want more help, shoot me a message on Instagram that says DFIO, and I'll see if dieting from the inside out is a good fit. Just message me on Instagram at @RealJaredHamilton, and then we'll just feel it out and see if it's a good fit. But otherwise, number 7 with this is why you always think about food, is because your mindset may be in the place of how little can I eat. So number 8, this is a really big one, especially if you're a very busy individual. If you have a big career, you're always busy, your calendar never slows down and everything like that, is one of the reasons you may always be hungry is because you have no system or structure to food. So you're always reactive and on the grab and go life. If you look at your life that you're successful in, you're probably very routine. You're probably very system driven. If with your career, you probably have an SOP that you abide by, that you've been running for the longest time. With your kids, you live off of a schedule. If you have dynamics where like you're doing stuff, getting kids up, getting them on the bus, going to work, managing everything, you probably have a routine that you fall into. We get up at this time, we do this, then this, then this, all these kind of things. And it's how that all thrives together. It should be no different with food. This is why inside dieting from the inside out, we do so much, and almost everything is exclusively framework and system driven. Because when chaos hits, which life tends to have lots of chaos, we fall to the level of our systems. So this is why with our clients, we don't want them having to like think about stuff all the time. We want everything to be turnkey. Like, don't get me wrong. Yes, you have to be able to think critically, but if you are running off of just like, I'll figure it out and kind of vibes on all this, or like, let's jump off the cliff and build this plane on the way down, that is just an emotionally volatile way to lose weight and fix your relationship with food and transform. And the truth is, you're probably not going to with that, because you've probably been doing that for a while now. Because imagine if we reversed roles. Imagine if we look at the areas you're successful in: career, kids, social life, travel, money, whatever, and we just switch roles. So you are super structured with your nutrition or with your body goals and things like that, but you do the equivalent that you've been doing with weight loss for your work, for your career, for the kids. It would probably be chaos. So this is why we have to go, what systems can we put in place? What frameworks can we put in place? What things can I put in place? So this is just autopilot turnkey. Now, I'm not talking about like follow rigid meal plans or do anything unsustainable. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having flexible and dynamic systems that you can lean into for whatever comes up. When things get busy, when things get stressful, things that you do every day, things that are just like non-negotiables. That way you are successful and don't have to think about food all the time. But it makes sense if you're always hungry, is because you're always reactive. So like one day you're in a drive-through every meal. The other day you forget to eat and you're just running out of the house with coffee. The next day you might have a protein bar in your purse. These kind of things. So it makes sense why you're always hungry if you don't have actual systems. So, and again, if you'd like to have systems, we could see if dieting from the inside out would be able to help you. Just message me DFIO and I'll be able to help. All right, number 9, why you are probably hungry all the time is, and I kind of alluded to this, but it has its own number in my notes. You don't have enough real meals. You're living off of bars, shakes, and coffee. Look, you need actual real whole meals. Supplements are fine. I'm not against supplements by any means, but they are called a supplement for a reason. If you are living off of bars and shakes or meal replacements or just like caffeine and dirty jokes, it's no wonder that you are always hungry, because you're not actually having enough food or meals or sustenance for your body to satiate itself with. Even if, yes, you have protein in the protein bars, or you are having meal replacements or whatever, that's cool. But if you are not actually having whole meals as the majority of what you're eating, it makes so much sense why you're hungry all the time. Your supplements should not be the main thing. They should be to supplement. And I have a really busy life too. I travel a lot and things are always crazy, but I also have real meals and I don't just live off of protein bars and caffeine. So if you notice you're hungry all the time, but you don't have that many consistent, real, whole, regular meals, this is probably your problem. Next, number 10. This is a big one. This is another mindset one. And it kind of contributes off of number 1, where you just aren't eating enough. One of the biggest reasons so many people are hungry all the time is because you might low-key secretly take pride in how hungry you are. I've seen so many people who have been dieting for the majority of their life. They almost brag about how hungry they are. They're like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten in this long, or I've only had 500 calories today. It's crazy. It's 8 o'clock at night, or whatever the case is. That is not a badge of honor. Suffering is not a suffering contest. It's not a badge of honor, and we should not be proud of how hungry we are. Is a little bit of hunger normal during a weight loss phase? Yes. But there is a massive difference between a little bit of hunger versus being ravenous, thinking about food all the time, and just being so hungry all day where you're just ready to put ketchup on drywall. So we have to look, do you identify almost deep down from like an identity level as a hungry person or someone who takes pride in hunger? If we look back at your dieting history, like what's the dominant emotion you felt? Do you mostly feel like, oh, I feel scared when I eat more, or when I'm not hungry, that means something's wrong. So we have to look and see if, like, do you take pride in being hungry? And if that's the case, it makes sense why you default to that. You have to remember that 80-90% of all your actions every day are unconscious, like you're not aware you're doing it. So it makes sense if part of you, it feels comfortable being hungry all the time, or you take pride in how hungry you can be. It makes sense why you almost default to there, right? Next, number 11. This is a big one. One of the reasons that you may be hungry all the time is you don't sleep or rest enough. So your actual hunger hormones go through the roof. I mean, it's literally shown in research that if you do not sleep enough, the hormones that elicit hunger are going to be higher, are going to be stronger. So this is why we have to make sure, like, are you even resting enough? And it's one of those things where it doesn't sound related, where it's like, oh no, I'm always hungry. I should sleep more. Because I always hate that kind of advice too, where if someone's struggling, they're like, everyone's advice is sleep more and drink more water. That's rarely that helpful of advice. But if you are always hungry and you are always not very rested, or you don't sleep well, that is another lever we can pull. Because if you are not rested, if you are not recovering, and you are always tired, your actual hunger hormones are going to be elevated. Not to mention kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the episode, where a trigger for a lot of people is to just go eat is when they feel tired. They're tired, their bandwidth is low, they're frustrated by the day, and so it's easy to end up in the pantry or the freezer. So we have to look and see if we're actually resting and recovering enough. And then finally, number 12 of reasons you might be hungry all the time is you're exiling entire food groups. This kind of goes back to the number about doing trendy diets and things like that, where if your plan isn't balanced, this is half the reason. So many people, when they go to lose weight, they are getting rid of carbs or getting rid of fats or getting rid of entire categories of food. And that's the problem, because yeah, you may hear some people say, oh, I did keto and I'm never hungry because they eat all this fat, but that means you don't have carbs. And that can also be such a huge piece with that. So just be careful. Don't taking one person's experience, because you heard one person that did keto said, oh, I was never hungry because I put a whole stick of butter in my coffee. That doesn't mean it's going to translate to you necessarily, but we also have to look at, it goes back to the sustainable concept. Is that actually sustainable and doable for the long haul for you? But that aside, if you are exiling entire categories of things, no carbs, no fats, no whatever, this can be a problem. This can contribute to why you're hungry, even if your calories are in check. Okay. I'm going to actually, I had a couple more come off the top of my head, and we're actually doing pretty okay on time. So I'm going to add a couple more. Another big reason that you may be hungry all the time is because you actually don't have enough whole foods in your diet. Because I do preach all the time, like moderation, honor your cravings, all of this stuff. But this is where like the 80-20 rule comes in place. Because if you are eating the majority of your nutrition, your calories from better quality, more nutritious, whole real foods, you're going to be more satiated because there's more volume there. And then obviously 20% have of whatever your cravings are and being a normal person and honoring those. But too often when people don't have enough whole foods in their diet, they're hitting their numbers or their macros or whatever, but it's mostly in like more processed foods and things like that. That doesn't take up as much space. So if you have like half of your calorie intake from like fast food or candy or these kind of things and supplements where it's not as satiating, it makes sense why you're not going to be very full and you're going to be hungry. Whereas if we change that ratio, now don't take that out of context. I'm not saying go pure volume eating where all you're eating is things that don't have as many calories because you're just filling it in with like veggies and things like that. But I'm saying that's where the 80-20 rule is, as kind of corny or as overused as it sounds, it really shines, is because you need to still have the majority of what you eat, better quality, more nutritious, while you're still enjoying everything else in the 20%, eating the pizza, eating the ice cream, having the time with your family and friends, going on date night, enjoying the things that you crave in moderation, and having a great relationship with food. Now, if you're listening to that saying, I can't have just one of anything like that, well, then we need to fix your relationship with food first before we dive into fat loss. And then ironically, that's also the very first thing that we teach in my program, Dieting from the Inside Out. So just throwing that out there again. Now, the other piece with this, and I'll end you on this one, or I'll leave you on this one. One of the other huge reasons so many people are hungry who are trying to lose weight all the time is because whatever they're eating, it kind of goes back to number one, it's still not enough because of their output. I see so many individuals who are trying to lose weight and training for a marathon and running their kids around all day and have all this other stuff going on and do this and do this and do this and hit 20,000 steps a day, whatever. And you may be going, okay, well, I eat 2,000 calories a day, but I'm still hungry all the time. It may not be enough. You may have a higher metabolism than you think. You may just be more active than you realize. I'm telling you, we work with some like crazy super moms where they're hitting 15,000 steps a day and running their kids around all the time and prepping for a marathon and love strength training and go to CrossFit a couple days per week and do this. And it's all these things. And if that's the case, well, we need to account for that stuff, because if you have that much output, that's the equivalent of you still under eating. Like, let's say you take someone that doesn't do as much and you drop into a big calorie deficit, say that someone eats 1,000 calories a day, but their maintenance is 2,000. That's too big of a deficit in my opinion. But let's say someone's eating 2,000 calories a day, but they're burning 3,000 or 4,000 calories a day, just random numbers, it has the same effect. So if you find yourself always hungry, but you're also running like crazy, you're getting steps in, you're doing all these things, we need to test that upper limit still. Because this is no matter who we're working with, when you come into my program, we have to make sure that you're eating enough. And I cannot tell you how many ladies we've worked with who are jaw dropped at the amount of calories they can actually get away with eating while still losing weight. But it's because they've never tested it. They've never tried it before. And it also makes consistency so much easier because you have so many more calories to deal with and work with. And that is it. I know this was a little bit long-winded because it was just like 12, 13, 14 things, but I wanted to give a lot of options as why you might be hungry, because it's the worst feeling ever. I remember when I was struggling with this stuff back when I was younger, I felt broken. I was like, what's wrong with me? Because I'm always hungry 24/7 all the time. And it was because like I checked off for 3 of these. I would skip meals. I would see about how little I could eat. I was not sleeping or whatever the case may be. So this is why my goal with this was for you to just go, okay, I'm good there. I'm good there. I'm good. Oh, okay. I think there's something there, because I doubt you would be listening to this episode if you didn't struggle with this. I could be wrong. You may just maybe listen to this for whatever reason, but otherwise that is it for today's episode. If you ever have thought I'm always hungry and I don't get why, I hope this provided some insight. If you haven't subscribed yet to the podcast, be sure and do that. As well as if this content has helped you and has been helpful to you, be sure and give me a review wherever you are listening to this out on Spotify, Apple, whatever. If you could just give me a 5-star rating, it would mean a ton. Obviously, if you agree that this is worth worth it, as well as give me your feedback on the podcast. It means a ton, and I love reading these reviews, but this is also how we climb the podcast rankings and get this content to more people, because that's my only ask is I really want to keep doing this podcast the way I do it, and I really want to get this stuff to the right people who need this help. So that is it for today's episode. I appreciate you being here. Thank you once again, and I will talk to you next week.